Hello and welcome to another episode of Never Fail Ale. Now, I want to get straight down to business. Have you ever heard of Brewdog? You most probably have. It's one of the biggest UK brewers. Have you ever heard of their stout, Black Heart? Also, you could well have because it has been on the market for a little while now. But something did strike me as being quite unusual. So, the drinkers of Black Heart will already be aware of this. However, I noticed on the side of the can, there's a little instruction there that says, invert the can once. So, maybe being a little bit daft, but is there instruction to literally take it from its position, such as this now, and then turning it round, such as this, and then pouring it straight into the glass? Or, as I feel like the diagram would dictate, is it asking us to do a spin? Maybe a full rotation? Maybe that's what it would say if that's what it meant. But I just actually wasn't quite sure. I'm yet to try the Black Heart Draft Stout from Brewdog, so I'm just going to give it a go and actually invert it from this position up. Now, I could have used, because the fact that it's a stout, and there is, of course, a very well-known stout globally in Guinness, and I could have just used one of their glasses, but I feel like that would be unjust. So I find this particular glass that I purchased from Brute Boot Beer, in fact, which is a cracking brewery in Derbyshire, and it tends to do really, really well with stouts. I think it's the tulip style glass that actually does its stouts some justice in general. So I'm just going to pour it using this glass and just see how we get on. So let's open it up. And I am just going to literally invert it and pour. Is that what they want us to do? Guess we'll find out. So straight away, it does have that kind of creaminess to it as it's pouring. You can see in the glass, very similar to Guinness. I don't really want to compare it, but naturally, with it being a stout, I feel you are going to kind of compare the two, rightly or wrongly. And don't get me wrong, like Guinness can taste very, very different from different sources. With it being such a global brand, I find Guinness can be very different from different pubs, is what I mean. As in, you can have a really good pint of Guinness or you can have a really terrible one. With Black Heart, I'm assuming they want to try and set themselves apart when it comes to Brewdog from said drink in terms of Guinness. So I'm sure they don't want to be kind of, how will I put it? Not associated, but they don't really want to be leveled against Guinness because ultimately they want it to be a completely different drink, even though it is a stout. But you can see now, once I've poured it there, it has actually got a really good head, and it's jet black. Maybe it looks a little bit better or a little bit further away from the screen, so you don't get the glare from it. But it's a really good looking pint. So maybe that's what they wanted us to do. So literally, from its standing point, invert it straight up. But I just thought it was unusual to see on the side of a can. There's not much in terms of smell from it, that is for sure. So you don't get much of an aroma at all. It'd be interesting to see how it tastes. Just wanted to show you there, look. Like, it is quite creamy, but is the consistency thick enough for a good stout? Let's give it a go. Oh, it's actually a lot lighter than I expected. Like with, yeah, it looks like it's got a really heavy body to it, but it's actually quite a light stout. And it is clinging onto the glass quite nicely. Yeah, that is quite refreshing. I do quite like that. There's you definitely get the coffee through. Um, there's a slight caramel to it, so there is a little bit of sweetness there. And like the dark roast is definitely coming through too, but maybe not quite as strong as I would imagine. Like I say, it is quite light. Expected it to be a little heavier than it is. Is that a good thing? I'm not sure. It depends on what you're looking for when it comes to a good quality stout. But yeah, generally it's actually really quite nice. Um, Strangely refreshing. A stout can be refreshing, but I always find I tend to go to the likes of a stout or an amber ale when it comes into the winter months. And sometimes I want that heaviness because it kind of gives you a sense of warmth in a way. Like I say, especially when it comes to kind of the autumn and winter months. But yeah, I have to say, really quite nice. So in terms of its profile, I know they use Simcoe hops. Malts, they use a chocolate malt, extra dark crystal, light Munich, pale ale, and roasted barley. So yeah, quite a complex mix of malts there. But as mentioned, I did think it was just a little unusual just seeing that on the side of the can, and I wanted to see what you thought and how it poured. And as a whole, actually not a bad drink. So there we go, the Brewdog Black Heart Draft Stout. Cheers.